Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight's webinar on the case-based learning in action inside the ACSOM classroom. As I just watched some of the folks kind of join the session, I just want to introduce a few housekeeping items. Firstly, we'd love to know who is joining us here tonight in this webinar. So if you want to drop your name in the chat, tell us where you're calling from, tell us where you're at in your medical school journey. If you're just starting the research process, if you're ready to apply tonight, we'd love to know more about who is joining us this evening. Additionally, if you do have any questions or you want to add comments, or you've just got something kind of on your mind that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to put it in the chat as well, and we can address your questions live during the Q&A. And also, I type in the chat if there's something that's a little bit more one-on-one. I can answer that directly in the chat as well. So on that note, today we're going to talk a lot about the curriculum, but we're also going to talk about why your mindset matters and the importance of mindset in your medical school success. So you'll see kind of some tips and tricks on keeping the right mindset and things that you can do outside of the classroom to keep you successful in the classroom. So it's not just about intelligence, but perseverance and perspective in the classroom and in order to achieve great success, which you'll hear from our guests tonight. So our featured speakers, I'll introduce myself first. My name is Christine. I'm the Canadian admissions representative. Some of you, like Foz, who just joined from the University of Waterloo in Ontario, might recognize me from working together. But I primarily focus on the Canadian market. But I can answer your American questions as well, and you can always ask me questions or meet with me should you so choose. And then we have Dr. Ahmadi, who I will let introduce himself briefly. And then we'll pass it over to Dr. Jeffrey Wong, who will also introduce himself. So we'll start with you, Dr. Ahmadi.
Good evening. I'm the Dean of American Canadian School of Medicine. I am by profession an internist. I did my internal medicine residency at Yale, and I have been in this area of medical education for more than 3 decades. I used to be the program director for one of the Yale affiliate internal medicine residency programs and chief academic officer for Western Connecticut Health Network, a group of hospitals in Western Connecticut. So that's about me. Dr. Wong.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Wong. I, too, am a medical educator. I'm much older than Dr. Ahmadi. I've been doing this for about 40 years. I have been at a number of different institutions in the United States, most recently at Penn State University. And I have been joined with this medical school to help with designing the curriculum and to help with coaching the young faculty members that are teaching the curriculum. And I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit about how our curriculum is quite a bit different than probably anything you've been exposed to, and why that might make it a deciding factor for you to come to visit us at the American Canadian School of Medicine.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as you can see, you are in great hands and leading experts in the field. So I'll pass it over to Dr. Ahmadi to tell us more about our curriculum.
Well, I just would want to say a few words about the general feel and philosophy of our curriculum before I leave it in the hands of Dr. Wong, who knows better than anyone about all the details of our curriculum and faculty. I want to say that all of the differences that you see here, and they are very dramatic from all the other international medical schools, they are by design. We intended to be different. We did not want to be a curriculum that's lecture-based, that you put 600 or 700 students in a large auditorium and essentially talk at them for the entire day. That was not the design or the intention. We believed that and that was our philosophy, that that's a very, if you will, low yield and low quality approach to medical education, particularly for your generation, because you are of the generation that very quickly, within 2 minutes of someone lecturing you, you will go to your iPhone, you will find somebody better on your laptop than the person who is talking to you. So you like to be independent. Your generation wants to have control over their learning time, and they want to be able to search and find answers to the problems themselves. So this curriculum was built with all of those elements in mind. When we say it is small group learning, you might hear that from a lot of other Caribbean schools, but in sharp contrast to what they do, which is, a lot of them would pay lip service to this small group or case-based learning. They would do a little bit of it on the side, but the main curriculum is conducted by professors who are giving you lectures in large auditorium. We don't have that. So this is really a huge departure from the old traditional model, and it's more in line with many modern curriculums and modern medical schools in the United States, where we really do rely on the case-based and small group and flipped classroom approach. So I just wanted to make sure that this big picture will remain with you. Dr. Wong is going to talk about this, give you details and answer your questions about the curriculum, but I just wanted sort of this contrast to stay with you, that we are truly different and unique in that way, and it is by design, and perhaps it is not for everyone. There are people who prefer to sit in those large auditoriums. Maybe there's still maybe some of those folks around, but we believe that your generation is that wants something different, that this new approach is in line with what they want and with the spirit of the time and with how the high quality medical education is conducted in really modern day medical schools. So I stop here and I leave it in the hands of Dr. Wong to go through his presentation and the details that he wants to share with you. Jeff?
Okay. So that's a picture of me from not that long ago in Dominica, where we were talking to the medical students, and that as an introduction to understanding the curricular structure is probably a good place to start. As Dr. Ahmadi mentioned, we specifically designed our course of study to be much different than other medical schools. And if you decided to come to the American Canadian School of Medicine, your experience will probably be unlike that of most medical schools at certainly other Caribbean schools, and maybe even other North American schools. As you can see on this slide, there are 4 aspects about the curriculum that I think are really worth highlighting. The first that Dr. Ahmadi mentioned is that we really want to maximize active learning modalities. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a little bit. Secondly, we really do structure the vast majority of our educational time in small group sessions. Those small group sessions are faculty facilitated, but they are essentially peer taught. And we'll get into why we think that's important in just a bit. Third, we believe that we devote a lot of our clinical and educational time, our educational time discussing clinical cases. And those clinical cases really link directly to the basic science concepts that are being talked about and provide context for your learning. And we think that's important. And lastly, the curricular design really begins the process of trying to teach you how to learn and think, not just like a medical student, but like a practicing physician. And so if you go on to the next slide, oops, well, we have the animation sort of stole the school there. But anyway, if you see this lecture hall, you can't see it very well with the picture, but there are lots of smart young people in the audience, and there is a teacher up front lecturing to them. And the point of this slide was to say that even if you have a lecturer who is really entertaining, is really knowledgeable, if you sit in a situation like this day after day, week after week, even the most brilliant lecturer will put the most attentive medical student to sleep. And this plays out day after day, after hour in most medical schools. There's just so much that a lecturer can do. Also, as Dr. Amati said, the idea of having someone in front of you telling you stuff is really not the way education is going in 2025. There is this concept of the world flattening. And what we mean by that is that the necessity of being in any one place to get information is really becoming less important with the availability of the internet and the access to information that is easily obtained by nearly anyone. You can be anywhere in the world and get information from other places in the world. So where you are isn't as important as getting the information you need. When Dr. Amati and I went to medical school, the only information we got was from the guy or the woman teaching in front of us. And nowadays, students can get access to informations or talks or lectures or videos from essentially anywhere. So that's the important thing about active versus passive learning. And you've probably heard of medical students presently who go to medical schools where lectures are the prime method of providing information, and many of them don't show up. They just stay in their hotel, their apartments or their dorm rooms and watch things on the video, or they have watched the videotaped lecture at 2.5 times speed on their own time. And so we just thought, why don't we do away with that and just do it up front, have them get this information beforehand. After they do that, if they will go to the next slide, we actually participate in the small group learning. And so the idea would be that our students do the pre-work by listening to lectures, going to the third-party resources that our teachers provide for them, and sort of learn the information before the small group. Then they go into the small group and get in the individualized attention that you might need. If the first slide or the slide on the left, you can see Louisa, who is one of our young faculty members, explaining a concept. If you imagine yourself in that previous slide in the lecture hall, if you wanted to get a question answered, not everyone would have the courage to raise their hand and interrupt the lecture to ask a question. But here in a small group setting, you're there with one of 7 or 8 other students, and you feel very free to speak with Louisa about any questions that you might have. In the right side of this slide, Ilshot's group is there working out problems on the board. And I like showing this slide because one of the things that's pretty clear in a lecture is that the focus is on the teacher. And in our small group teaching, very frequently, the focus is on the learners, the people that are working out the problem. And Ilshot's kind of standing in the corner looking at them learn, but he's not the focus of what's going on. The next slide shows this as a metaphor. So in many medical schools, students in the traditional basic science part of their curriculum are learning a great deal of information, anatomical structures, biochemical pathways, enzymatic reactions, and all of those sorts of things. Very frequently, they're taught by PhD experts, and it feels for many students that they are learning and trying to memorize all of these things without really any context. They're told that when you see a patient in a couple of years, that patient down at the end, the light at the end of the tunnel, that you'll want to remember all of this that you're being taught. But it isn't necessarily tied in right away. And when you have PhD experts that themselves are not clinicians, they may not know why this is important for taking care of a patient. So unlike that, our patient or our teachers are all MDs. And on the next slide, we try to have the small groups be very clinically based, such that all of the basic science material that you learn is then discussed in the context of a patient case. And here you see Michael with a CT scan right above his head that's talking about the problem with his small group students. The small group foundational concepts are always applied to clinical cases. And so from very early on, our students are learning about medical problems and learning the medical terminology and really starting to think like doctors. When the teachers are involved, and the right side of the slide is there, you can see that the active learning that's going on here is much different than sitting and passively thinking about what's going on in a lecture hall. On the next slide, one of the nice things about our groups is that the teachers and the learners get to know each other really well. And so not only is there fun going on, but the idea of students being able to have sort of a customized experience. They can meet with their small group teachers. If they're struggling with a question, that teacher will know to help them with that. And since they are interacting with each other's 5 days a week throughout the course of a semester, they really get to know each other quite well. One of the other things is that our teachers are pretty close in age to many of our students. And so it's almost a near peer type of teaching. Different than many medical schools where you have old people like me teaching who are generations removed from those of you that are going to school. And it's just kind of a nicer setting when you have someone that's like that. They themselves are doctors, and they will know what it's like to be a medical student because they weren't there that long ago. Many of them have also taken the USMLE Step 1 or are planning to take the USMLE Step 1 and will be right in line with the students that are studying for that as well. So in closing, on the next slide, I just want to sort of reiterate that the keys are that our emphasis is on active learning, the individualized attention that you get in small groups that are faculty facilitated but are peer taught. The clinical cases provide context for learning, and the learning to problem solve that you will be encountering when you're at the American Canadian School of Medicine really is the way doctors have to learn to keep up and to stay current when they're off on their own in practice. And so we do believe that this model will really help you to start thinking like doctors rather than just thinking like medical students. And that's really all that I had prepared for the curriculum. I'd be happy to answer any questions at the end if there are any.
Thank you so much. Yes, if there are any questions, there will be kind of a Q&A at the end, and I'll just take over. As Dr. Wong mentioned, there are some key differences in our learning, just to highlight. And a more, folks are visual learners too, so sometimes it's nice to position the information in a different way. But our active learning, our learning in a small group, learning in context from MDs who are dedicated to your success, and developing lifelong learning skills needed to be successful as an excellent physician. So if any of that really resonates with the way that you like to learn and with what you want out of your medical education, I'm just going to chat a little bit about how our application and our enrollment process works. So you're closer than you think, and we really encourage students to take all of this information and get all of the information that they can to make a decision that works best for them. And so for us, we want to remove as many barriers as possible for you to apply to medical school. So we have no application fee when it comes time to submit your application. There are very easy ways to apply, whether it be through your AMCAS, your ACOMAS, your OMSAS if you're in Canada, or your TMDSAS. And scholarships are available to our students when you apply. So it's not an additional application that you have to submit. It happens all at the time of initial application. And I'll just touch a bit on our application and admissions requirements. So we have kind of two streams. The most popular is our MD program. So for that, our students are required to have 2 semesters of biology, 2 semesters of chemistry, organic chemistry, 1 semester of math, and 1 semester of physics. You also have to have completed a bachelor's degree. It doesn't matter what just have that bachelor's degree or higher. And then we look at your MCAT as well. We take a holistic approach to our admissions process. So not one thing is as important or more important than the other. We look at you holistically as the applicant, be it your overall GPA, in conjunction with your prerequisite GPA, with your MCAT score, with your personal statement, with your resume, and your letters of recommendation. We have 2 intakes, spring, which is January, and fall, which is in August, and we are accepting applications for both of those intakes and moving students through the pipeline quite quickly and getting folks for both intakes in front of the interview and admissions committee as soon as possible. So it's quite easy to apply. You apply online. We have our MD program, and then if you are missing some of these requirements or you do not have your MCAT and you do not wish to take your MCAT, we also have our MD Direct program, which we just did a webinar on last week. If you want to go to our YouTube channel and check out and learn more about that program, if that's the better fit for you. So you apply online. You book your admissions interview once you get your pre-assessment from your admissions advisor, which would be myself or my counterparts in the US. You await your admissions decision, and then you accept your offer and prepare for day 1 in Dominica. I kind of flew through that admissions process just because I know we've got some experts here. And so, Dr. Mahdi, I'm going to bring you back to the stage and answer some questions that we have in the chat. So the first one is if you can discuss the assessment and grading.
Okay, so the curriculum that Dr. Wong described sits on this beautiful work of art curriculum that we are very proud of on Canvas, which is our learning system. And from day 1, you have access to our Canvas, and it essentially has tests and interactive formats for learning the material on a daily basis. So there is a self-assessment, if you will, that you have access to on a daily basis on the material that you are learning. And we do have, for example, a partnership with AMBUS, who provides us with also questions and tests and question banks and so forth. Throughout our curriculum, we have links to AMBUS, and that is used also for your weekly assessments. These are like weekly quizzes that reviews the material of the week with you, with multiple choice USMLE type questions. Again, this is in addition to another partnership again we have with TrueLearn, another company that provides very comprehensive USMLE preparation questions and tests, which you have access to again as a part of your daily readings and homeworks that you are supposed to do. Again, it's more of a self-assessment. The weekly quizzes and assessments are used just for to measure your knowledge of where you are in regard to learning the material of the week. Are you behind? Have you caught on? Um, and sort of not to let you fall behind too much from week to week. Then usually at the end of our module, which is a 7 weeks, in most cases, 9 weeks or 7 weeks, we have a end of module examination. It comes from the National Board of Medical Exams. The questions are from the National Board of Medical Exams and people who essentially design your USMLE Step 1. It's very similar. Similar people, similar exams. We have, again, a partnership with them, an agreement, a contract that allows us to conduct their test, their exam at our test center in the school. And that's the fateful day that you sit all in the test center with a lot of anxieties and a heart rate that is probably much higher than your normal baseline. And you take that end of module exam, and we require essentially a 70% to pass, because that's the requirement, that percentage for the USMLE Step 1, more or less, for all of you to pass it. So if you, for whatever reason, the rare cases that you might not pass that exam, then there is a learning center that supports you, and time that will be given to you, and additional readings and work and support from the faculty, and then a remediation exam. And typically we allow the students to remediate twice for that module before we decide that, okay, you have not passed this module, and you need, at the end of the semester, use the holidays between the 2 semesters and study for that module and pass it. And if you don't, at the end of the day, you would have to repeat the whole semester. And also, if you do not pass more than 1 module in a semester, you have to repeat that semester. So now it doesn't happen often, because those of you who are coming to medical school, you know that this is going to be a tough year. And this is, if this is not the toughest year of your life, I always tell our students, you need to go and get a life, because this should be a year that is extremely difficult, a lot of pressures, a lot of learning, but we try to make that a pleasant experience as much as we can. We try to be supportive, but those assessments are important. And typically the end of the module assessment is the one that really tells you where you stand with us. Now, this is in sharp contrast with, again, our other Caribbean schools, that, as you know, the first 2 years, first of all, that you go in the population of 600-700 people into these big schools, and they let you just fly by for the next 2 years, pay them the tuition and go by. And then right before the Step 1 exam, they put a qualifying exam in front of you. And if you did not pass that, they don't let you go and take the Step 1. We don't have that really right now. We have a comprehensive exam that we give you before the Step 1 to prepare you for Step 1. And we use it as a way of giving you feedback on how to study it in the following 2 or 3 weeks before you take your Step 1 exam. So it's mainly a diagnostic exam, and it is to prepare you for taking the Step 1, prepare you better. But we believe that our curriculum from day 1 prepares you for that main assessment. Your goal, your eyes should be on the Step 1. That is once you enter the medical school, passing that Step 1 is going to be your first milestone. Passing the Step 2, and then, of course, successfully completing your clinical rotations is your next milestone. And finally, the third milestone is matching into a residency program that you want and you sort of have been preparing yourself for. So those are really the goals and what you're looking for, and those assessments are meant to prepare you for those goals.
Thank you. That was very robust. I appreciate that. Another question, can you clarify something about case-based learning and small group work? Are the facilitators the same each time, or do they change? Also, how do small groups handle different personality types, like students who are more outspoken versus those who are quieter?
Dr. Wong, you want to answer it, or you want me to answer it, or how?
Well, so I can give it a shot. So there are about 3 things in that, Christine. Can you repeat?
Of course, of course. Okay, I'll break them down piece by piece. Are the facilitators the same each time, or do they change?
So the model that we have used to date is to assign the small group facilitators with a group of learners and to try to have that same person there essentially for the entire semester. And sometimes they will follow with the next semester. There's pluses and minuses to that, obviously, but one of the pluses that we think is really important is that the teachers get to know the students very well, and the students get to know the teacher very well. The strengths and the weaknesses of the students can then be readily helped by the teacher. And you don't really get that if you have different teachers going in and out. The nature of the teaching, though, is that it's pretty high intensity, and so sometimes the teachers are off, and there'll be a substitute. But for the most part, the small group teachers will be the same for you, at least for an entire semester.
I just wanted to add one other point, and that is because of the nature of our continuous ongoing faculty development program, you will be sort of a frequent event when you are sitting in a small group with your faculty, and a second young doctor is also sitting in the group, observing and learning from the more experienced faculty. And occasionally they might take the lead after several weeks of observation for certain days, because the following semester, that new arrival, that faculty will be taking charge of a small group. And so they prepare for it ahead of time. Practically all of our faculty have been already trained for at least a semester, sometimes for a full year, before they take charge of teaching and conducting the small group. Now, I apologize for interrupting. I think Dr. Wongstep would wanted to comment about the different personality types in the small group.
Yes, that was the second question, part of the question, Dr. Wong, is how do small groups handle different personality types, like students who might be a bit more outspoken versus those who are quieter?
Well, so the real key to facilitating small groups and to actually to be a participant in a small group is to develop those types of skills that allow a team approach to problem solving. And our facilitating teachers are helped, guided, and coached in understanding group dynamics and how to encourage people that are a little more quiet, and to sort of use the strengths of people that are more outgoing to help guide the group. One of the things that happens in small group learning is that the idea is not that you are there to show off what you know or what you don't know, but really everybody is there to help one another learn. And this is the model that goes on when doctors are in practice, or actually even more close to that when you're in residency. You're working with people that are essentially your peers, and you're trying to figure out how to best take care of your patients. And so you have to have that give and take. And there are different personalities in the residencies and different personalities in the practices that you'll be in later on. And so the idea of understanding how to work well with others comes with part of the process at ASCOM.
Awesome, thank you. Is there any clinical exposure during first year?
So we have during the first year a large group of standardized patients, and in our simulation center, you are based on your module, you would be presented with patients with different problems. So, for example, when you're going through cardiovascular module, there are going to be patients with chest pain, patients with shortness of breath. You are asked to see the patient, take the history, examine the patient, and all of that is recorded and then monitored, recorded, and then you're given feedback by the faculty. Same happens in a part of a bridge course that toward the end of your 2 years and before you enter the clinical campus sites, you have to learn how to do a complete history and physical examination. You have to learn how to do a problem-focused physical examination, and we do all of this with standardized patients. Now, we are in the process of completing our free clinic on campus for the community. We live in a very poor and underserved, of course, country as a whole, Dominica, and we have always promised the government of Dominica that we would participate in taking care of the population and in their healthcare organization. So we are opening that clinic this year. There will be some half days of clinic work for those who are listening to me now and will be coming as the sort of the next cohort to the island. And you would accompany again as part of your small group and your faculty, probably 2 faculty, the more, as I said, more experienced one and the new arrival to the clinic site where you would see patients. So that is part of also the first 2 years, although again, it hasn't been a major part yet because we have been still developing this clinical site. But as of this new year, I believe that will be integrated into our individual modules. That is really the extent of the clinical experience that I can talk about at the moment on the island. This is a small country, only 50,000 population. And for example, just to give you a sense, in many of these Caribbean countries, and not just Dominica, you don't have electronic medical records in the hospitals. You don't have the same organization of the hospitals that you have to then do your clerkships and later your residency in. And so that's why probably majority and more intense clinical training part of your experience happens in our clinical campus sites in California and Pennsylvania, and so those are. And we are again possibly also in Canada for those of you who are interested. We are working on the Canadian clinical site as well at the moment, but that's really where majority of that clinical training will take place, in the setting that you will later do residency and later will do practice as well.
Awesome, thank you. And we have a thank you in the chat for answering their questions so thoughtfully and thoroughly. So as there are no more questions in the chat from our viewers, I think this would be a great place to kind of wrap up this session. And I really just want to thank everyone who joined this evening for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I know for most of you, school might have just gotten back in session. So thank you for joining us and taking the time to learn a little bit more about the American Canadian School of Medicine. What I will do is I will post my, I posted my email in the chat for everyone. So if you do have any follow-up questions, please do not hesitate to reach out and get in touch. I would love to answer any follow-up. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I forgot to ask this question, please feel free to email me at any time. And then I would like to thank our experts tonight on the panel for also taking time out of their very, very busy lives and schedules to answer your questions and to teach you a little bit more about the ACSOM curriculum. So thank you, Dr. Wong, and thank you, Dr. Amati, for everything tonight. And I really appreciate it. I always love learning more. I always make a little note for a new thing that I might have missed, and I continue to learn from both of you. So thank you to everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope to see many of you on campus next year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Goodbye.